we shouldn't make political decisions with our money because the fact is markets go up and down under Republicans or Democrats or conservatives or liberals. They go both ways. Typical finance title for this would be like navigating uncertainty in finance and investing.
What do you want to call it?
Is screaming into the mist at the Bedford Place Mall.
Hi, I'm Nate.
I'm Matt. You have joined us on Money Questions.
Episode 4 now?
Yeah, we're on episode 4. We have an office. The office is in a mall in Bedford called the Bedford Place Mall. And the Bedford Place Mall was the location for the filming of Stephen King's novella, The Mist. And The Mist
but wait, there's more.
Yeah, it was a mini series about a community that was faced with this mist that came pouring into their town, and the people that got trapped in the mall were forced to deal with the mist, and there were creatures in the mist, and so they were all trapped behind the mall doors. And it's so surreal to watch it now that we work there because I see your office in it and I see the mall doors, and like there's a scene where the mist is all come in and they're like, well, what's out there? I think I see something. And this lady without a jaw comes slamming up against the window. Like, it's just intense. You get the premise of the mist. The mist rolls in. People are trapped in the mall. They need to get out. Anytime someone goes out, they die or they're close to dying. And they've got to deal with the uncertainty that are the creatures in the mist. And this is just a good analogy for navigating uncertainty, right?
Or this year and news headlines.
Or all the time, right? This was the point we made in chatting ahead of the show. Is it does feel really uncertain at certain points in your life, but the reality is, I think at least, that we are always faced with uncertainty, even if it doesn't feel that way. Like our commute to work is riddled with uncertainty, from going out to the car and being confronted by a 8-point buck, which happened to me one morning leaving the house. Like, I didn't anticipate that, but it's a possibility, right? And there's uncertainty in everything we do. It just feels like it's more at certain points in time.
Yeah, and the biggest thing as to like why it matters is uncertainty drives our day-to-day decisions, our decisions when it comes to planning on a short-term basis or even like midterm, long-term, into retirement. It drives a lot of variables associated with us making decisions and financial decisions. So everyone has their own different definition of uncertainty. We chose to describe it as the mist, but it's different for everyone, and they're all right.
Absolutely.
Because you're allowed to feel the way you feel about uncertainty.
Totally. And so in that, we're going to talk about sort of our current environment without dwelling too much on current events, but the current environment that we find ourselves in, how we deal with it within personal finance, how we deal with it within investing, and then methods for dealing with it just in life in general. Maybe a few tools that people could use to handle uncertainty in their day-to-day. Uncertainty in regards to the geopolitical environment has been a hot topic for, I don't know, at least a few months now, right?
Over 100 days, apparently.
Oh, well over 100 days. Yeah, maybe even since November for some reason.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we've got Donald down in the White House, and I think even in the lead up to the election, in who was going to be elected, and I think we both stayed up late to watch that, but we didn't need to because it was over quickly.
Yes.
And it was clear he was going to be elected. But even in the lead up to the election, financial markets and in turn our clients were very concerned about the outcome and what it could mean. And so we saw a lot of volatility within investments leading up to the election. And then what happened after he got elected? Remember?
All that was priced then in and nothing happened?
Well, no, the markets went for a little bit of a rip. The markets went for a little bit of a tear. It was like last time he was elected. Everybody thought when he was elected that, oh boy, he's going to be a disaster for, the world. And we'll leave our opinions on that to the left or to the right. But, the markets went on a tear. I remember one of our portfolio managers at the financial institution that I used to work at said he was disappointed when he stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning trying to trade overnight markets because everything started going up and he thought he was going to have sales to buy, but everything was going up. So there were no sales, right? Anyways, the same sort of thing happened this time around after he got elected. But I think my take is, and I don't think I'm alone on this, was that it's not the markets were happy that he was elected. It's just there was removal of some uncertainty.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like everyone is involved in various investment markets in different ways for different reasons. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference of trying to hedge out the cost of transporting goods across borders versus drawing a monthly income from a bond portfolio.
Totally.
But like you're invested for different reasons.
Yeah.
With different expectations and arguably and different outcomes.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, our advice to clients through those types of periods are, don't allow politics to seep into your opinions about your nest egg for the future. Meaning, we shouldn't make political decisions with our money because the fact is markets go up and down under Republicans or Democrats or conservatives or liberals. They go both ways under both types of leadership. And so it doesn't really matter in the long term, which is what I think it's one of the tools that we use to focus people in their finances is focus on long-term outcomes and to ignore short-term gyrations. And quite frankly, if there were funds that you had invested that you needed within the next 3.5 years, Nathan nor I would ever have that money fully in the stock market because that would be silly because we know it can move wildly over shorter periods of time.
Yeah, it's cash and cash equivalents because you're going to spend it.
Absolutely. But back to the uncertainty that he brings to the table. He introduced all these tariffs. So we have this unpredictable tariff imposition. The renegotiation and withdrawal from trade agreements that he made last presidency, like the USMCA agreement, the questioning of longstanding alliances around the world, the cozying up to dictators and unsavory characters. Like there's a lot to digest there, and it's upsetting, I think, in a lot of different ways.
And then how it matters to the average household is the paychecks that hit the bank account. How does that money get reallocated on goods and services you need to live? Like, is the price of groceries going to go up or down? Like, is gas going to go up or down to take you to and from work? Like, what are the other costs that you don't know are coming as a result of the uncertain environment that we're currently living in?
Job insecurity. If you're an auto worker in Ontario, if you're a lobster fisherman in Nova Scotia, like what kind of prospects do you have under these, various outcomes? And the truth is it's very uncertain because everything seems to be just kind of on a whim without much planning. And it's interesting to see how it's sort of playing out because like I saw a stat in the past couple of weeks that, flights to the US from Canada are down 70% year over year. Like that's significant. And
yeah, so like we've talked about how households sort of like look at uncertainty, but like businesses also have to deal with uncertainty as well because they need to provide some sort of indication to all their stakeholders as to where we're going and why and what the future looks like, because they need to be able to efficiently allocate capital to like build or provide things, like hire employees, invest in new projects, like research and development. And what you've seen happen like this year is because the future is uncertain. And those prospects of various revenue sources of businesses are confusing. Businesses focused on the other side of the balance sheet, which is like all they cleaned up their liabilities. They looked at their expenses and they sort of tidied all that up.
Yeah, as opposed to providing guidance about what they believe is going to happen in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters. They're saying we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, they close their shutters and start to hoard some money.
Yeah, and therefore we're not going to provide guidance, which makes investors nervous, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, a lot of those, motivations are quarter by quarter. And we have to try and focus on the fact that the instruments that we're buying for clients for their long-term savings are businesses. And those businesses are generally run by smart people who have a focused goal on generating more business and cash flows. And so they're going to take advantage of what they see as opportunities in all of this. I'm not saying it's good. I don't believe I don't believe it's good, but at the same time, we have to have some faith that this system will be alive and continuing 10 to 20 years later, because planning for anything other than that feels crazy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking bunkers and hoarding cans of Spam and talking about zombies.
Yeah.
It's those conversations.
Yeah. I mean, and if that's some people are going to do that, and that's fine, but we're probably not the advisors for them. We know some advisors for them, though. Then there's just uncertainty in people's personal finances, and that's, I think, where we come in a lot of the time. Right? Is, to a large extent, we're trying to help people solve for uncertainty. That doesn't mean get rid of it. That means, having maybe a plan in place that is strategically, structured so that it can withstand various environments. People have income uncertainty. People have expense uncertainty.
Like when it comes to like navigating personal finances, we tend to focus on the uncertainty we can plan for and implement strategies in order to control and mitigate that uncertainty.
Right. Yeah. So even just getting to the basics of what that looks like. If someone comes into our office and says, I have no idea what to do. I'm working now. I've saved some money. I've got a bit of, I've got some money, but it's in a checking account. I just got married. I'm thinking of having a baby, or I'm thinking of buying a home and moving in with my partner, whatever it might be. What are the basics that we take them through at that point?
It's different for everyone. And based on all those differences, it usually starts with a conversation about cash flow and having money set aside for emergencies.
Right.
Because like we've all heard that rule of keeping like 1 to 3 months of your paycheck sort of set aside for emergencies. But depending on what you do for a living and what you spend, that number is drastically different for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe 3 months is completely unrealistic just because it's going to be impossible to save that much. So maybe it's a combination of having, some credit available to you that you leave alone, and, a few weeks worth of money set aside, or even, getting a month ahead with your budget. That's something that I've kind of come across lately in personal finance writings, like this goal of being a month ahead on all your finances. So building in that buffer so that if something happens for a month, your bills are covered for a month. It's essentially the same thing. But I mean, that starts with knowing what your outlay is, how much money you're going to spend on a monthly basis. So, having that foundation of an emergency fund is super duper important, because if you're going to then take the next step of putting money away for medium or long-term goals, what you want to do with that medium and long-term money is ensure that it can compound uninterrupted.
Right.
And so it can't do that if you have an emergency and you have to blow it all up.
Yep. And we're building a foundation within that sort of financial plan where sort of cash flows and emergencies is one of the foundations or the base of the plan.
Totally.
And if you don't have that, then you can't sort of move on to the next level and focus on your future self when you're not taking care of your current self.
That's it. There's levels to this, right? Mm-hmm. Next level might be if you have aspirations of purchasing a home, or even if you just have a partner that relies on your income to live. Then generally speaking, the next step would be to look at some kind of insurance solution, right? And it doesn't have to be something exotic or pricey, but I mean, you can cover off, a few years worth of income with a pretty inexpensive term life insurance policy, depending on your health and your age and all those sorts of things.
If you're like a single income household and your family is dependent on you and your ability to earn an income, the risk there is that income stopping.
Yeah, and you going away.
Yeah.
And that income not coming in.
Yeah, through death, disability, job loss. Should have started with job loss, but like
that's okay.
It's planning and having those conversations with the uncomfortable what ifs.
Right.
Like, what if this happens? How will we get through it? What are the options available?
Yeah, for sure.
So
Well, and the emergency fund or the insurance or the disability insurance is generally just a way for you to place money into something that transfers the risk of that outcome to something else.
They're just tools that deal with risk.
Yeah. Now you're at this stage where you're like, okay, I've kind of got a nice solid foundation under myself. My next steps are to start really putting money away for longer term goals, right? And so with putting money away for those longer term goals comes other tools to deal with uncertainty, because what kind of uncertainty do you introduce when you start putting money away for those types of things? Well, you have the uncertainty of financial markets going up and down, right? You have uncertainty of a specific thing that you're investing in not doing as well as you had hoped.
Yeah, and all those things are just like the uncertainty of different outcomes.
Absolutely.
And just being able to plan for those different outcomes, because it all ties into an individual's ability to accept and understand and tolerate risk within their situation.
Right.
And it's really different for everyone.
And so this is when you start hearing words like diversification.
Warning, financial jargon alert. Diversification means not putting all your money into one type of investment. Instead, you spread your money across different things, like stocks, bonds, real estate, or different industries, so that if one investment doesn't do well, the others might still be okay. It's a way to reduce risk and help protect your money.
And while that will introduce the risk that you don't hit a big home run, that's often not the goal of saving for the long term. The saving for the long term is potentially, as far as we look at it, I think is trying to earn a reasonable rate of return for a long time so that compounding can work its magic over time.
And the baseball analogy of that is like batting singles and doubles.
Yeah, singles and doubles. It's all we once had a prospective client walk into the office, and he was sort of pressing us for how much we could tell him a certain investment would return, and he wanted big returns, and so he wanted to take a concentrated risk. But there was no reasoning behind any of that. He just wanted to make as much money as possible, right? And he wanted us to tell him where he could do that. And unfortunately, we just weren't a fit for him.
This was 3 or 4 years ago, but it resulted in, like, if you're not willing to disclose your financial position and engage with us in any sort of financial planning conversation, I think we should facilitate the transfer of this account out to another financial professional.
Right. Yeah.
If you're within sort of a financial advisory relationship, it's a two-way street. Like, we're accountable
to our process and the way we do things.
We also need to have sort of timely and accurate information in order to give good advice.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that, then the engine binds up and the gears stop working.
Yeah.
And you're stuck on the side of the road.
He was looking for someone to speculate on his behalf. And that was something that we couldn't help him with, right?
Just regarding around just life events, because a lot of us now in our 30s and 40s and 50s, we have aging parents. And then our parents, as they age, they need different levels of care, and their life and their daily living changes. So, like, I have a good friend who's self-employed, working every day for a paycheck type of thing. And he recently had to be sort of the primary decision maker for his father, who has a life expectancy of sort of 1 to 2 years left.
Mm-hmm.
So that throws a bottleneck into someone's life, creating all this uncertainty of, like, well, how does my mortgage and my Netflix and my groceries, like, how does all that get paid if I can't work and I can't invoice and I can't run my business. How do I focus on what really matters, which is like being there like for his father? In this particular case, there was some planning done beforehand where we discussed and created the opportunity for him to slow down and be there for his dad. So, and it was all centered around sort of understanding cash flow, monthly expenses, what was a want versus a need, and having that budget to know that he could work a day or two a week, but spend the primary chunk of his time with his dad. Mm-hmm. So like, and we're seeing like more and more of that sort of, as we all age, because we're not immoral.
Immortal.
I was going to say immoral. But like, that's the wrong word.
Yeah, for sure. Someone who's immoral would say something different.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I just want a minute to just talk about a couple of frameworks that people can utilize if they're considering something and they're not sure whether or not they should do it, right? We know that there's uncertainty, and we know that we have to figure out what we can bear. But sometimes you have to make a decision and you have no idea what the outcome's going to be, right? And some people's decision is to not do anything, right? And so, we both have clients that will say, I don't want to take any risk, right? And so what that looks like with someone's money is I want to put it all in my savings account, or I want to put it all in a GIC. And to them, that means no risk. But we both know that isn't the outcome of doing that, right? You aren't removing the risk by doing that with your money.
One of the tools that we use in our profession that's incredibly important in driving decision making, it's an investor profile questionnaire. It's 10 or 14 questions, and it defines how you deal with uncertainty and what types of risks you can and cannot deal with, or do you need within your financial plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's certainly one of the tools that we deal with uncertainty with, right? Mm-hmm. We criticize these things sometimes because, it's a questionnaire. What would you do if this happened? And what would you do if this happened? And I like to joke with people that, what you say you're going to do if a bear attacks you is often a lot different than what you would actually do if you got attacked by a bear, right? Like that's one of my favorite conversations with my 9-year-old. And he's like, well, what I would do is I would pick up a stick and I would jump and I'd hit him over the head and then I would, karate chop them and doing this and that, right? And we all know, we've all confronted a situation like this where, when the thing happened, you react a lot differently than you expected you would, right? Whether it's curling up into the fetal position and crying, or just doing something you completely didn't anticipate you would do. So these questionnaires kind of happen in a vacuum, and they say, what would you do if your account went down 10%? Would you A, hang tight, B, add more, or C, sell it all, right? But that doesn't happen just in a vacuum. It happens in the context of someone on the news telling you the world's coming to an end.
Yes.
My favorite framework for thinking through uncertainty is this whole regret minimization framework, and I've used it a couple of times. And the whole idea is that you're faced with a big decision, you have a big opportunity potentially, and you're not sure whether or not you should kind of do that thing. Because doing that thing may close off other opportunities or, something you've been comfortable with for a very long period of time. And so this whole regret minimization framework actually came from Jeff Bezos when he was starting Amazon. And what he did when faced with a big uncertainty was kind of place himself far into the future. So, I'm 47 years old. Far into the future for me might be 80 years old. So I'm going to put myself into, the mind of 80-year-old Matt. And then, sitting there as 80-year-old Matt, think to myself, okay, as 80-year-old Matt, would 80-year-old Matt regret making this decision, or would he regret not making this decision? And often that's kind of a cool perspective, because I think if you talk to people, they often regret things they didn't do rather than regretting things they did and failed at. Right? It's like you'll regret never taking the chance, even if it doesn't work out. If you never did it, you'll never know whether or not it would have worked out. Right? And I just think that's kind of a good tool to have in your quiver in regards to thinking through uncertainty. Right?
Because some people like being uncomfortable.
Well, that's just it. Yeah. You like to partake in activities sometimes that are risky, right? And we're not talking about swimming in the harbor, right?
Or intravenous drugs or anything.
Yeah,
like
no. But I mean,
No, like I like type 2 fun. I like putting myself outside of my comfort zone, paddling my canoe up a river where I don't know where it goes.
Right.
Other than a map type thing, or skiing with friends safely down through trees. Like that's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean that's going back to the different types of risks and the people that want to eliminate risks. Like there's slow risk and then there's fast risk, right? And fast risk might be skiing through trees and hitting one immediately, right? But slow risk might be never getting off the couch and what that does to your body and your heart over a long period of time, right? And so the person that doesn't want to take risk, the slow risk they're taking is that their money never keeps up with inflation, and it buys half as much of the stuff it could buy today in 20 years, right? It's still a risk. It's just not the immediate uncomfortable risk of whizzing through trees, right?
Yeah. So Matt, what are a few things we can do as sort of like takeaways?
Yeah. No, takeaways. Before we can get somewhere, it's important to assess where we are, right? So what's the situation that you find yourself in right now, whether that's from a career perspective or an investing perspective or personal finance perspective? What does it all look like, right?
What are we working with?
What are we working with, right? Step one.
Oh, I know the next step.
What is it?
Where are we going?
That's right? So next step, that's the plan.
Yeah.
Right? We got to build a plan, right? We know where we are. We know we want to be there.
Yeah.
So what do we need in order to get there?
Yeah. And then uncertainty is it's all in between start and finish.
Yeah.
It's all based on the individual, like how much different types of risk you want at different points of your life to get from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. For myself, I like taking the windy back road, but some people like staying on the highway.
Yeah. Well, and I think at the end of the day, you remove elements of uncertainty with each step that you take. You're never going to get rid of all of it. There's always going to be curveballs or things that you didn't see coming.
Yeah. And I think 80-year-old Matt would be pumped at the decisions that present Matt are making.
Hey. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, we want you to do is self-reflect, think about the position you're in. Are the things you're doing today lining up with the place you want to be? And if they're not, then, figure out how it is you're going to get there. And if you need some help, call your local trusted advisor. And if you don't have one of those, talk to a family or friend about one of them. And if you're just not sure, then just give us a call.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. There you go. Spay neuter your pets.
The comments contained herein are a general discussion of certain issues intended as general information only and should not be relied upon as tax or legal advice. Please obtain independent professional advice in the context of your particular circumstances. This presentation was prepared by Matthew McGowan and Nathan England CFP for the benefit of Matthew McGowan and Nathan England CFP, mutual fund representative with Evangeline Wealth Management, a registered trade name with Investia Financial Services Inc., and does not necessarily reflect the opinion of Investia Financial Services Inc. The information contained in this presentation comes from sources we believe reliable, but we cannot guarantee its accuracy or reliability. The opinions expressed are based on an analysis and interpretation dating from the date of publication and are subject to change without notice. Furthermore, they do not constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities. Mutual funds are offered through Investia Financial Services Incorporated. Commissions, trailing commissions, management fees, and expenses all may be associated with mutual fund investments. Please read the fund fact sheet or prospectus before investing. Mutual funds are not guaranteed, their values change frequently, and past performance may not be repeated.